In our Data Masterclass podcast, data leaders share their unique stories. In this episode, we talk to Tom Redman, a data strategy thought leader and advisor. We discuss key learnings from his new book, People and Data: Uniting People and Data to Transform Your Business. Let's welcome your host, Alex Borek.
Hello, my data friends. We have a very special guest today in our Data Masterclass podcast episode. We have somebody who actually visited us this summer at the Data Masterclass Europe in Berlin as our keynote speaker. He had several keynotes actually at the event. It's Tom Redman, who has been a pioneer in the data quality discipline. He several decades ago, he found out that there can be a systematic way of approaching data quality and improving data at Bell Labs. And since then, he has worked around the world with companies to improve their data and has, I think, succeeded in a lot of times to really make a significant difference. And so I'm very pleased to have Tom here with us and to talk a bit about how you can improve actually data.
Yep. Thank you for asking me to join, Alex. It's good to be working with you again.
Great. And so Tom, you had a fabulous series of talks at Data Masterclass Europe. There were some important topics you actually uncovered for us in data. And let's get into these points. So I think one probably that I remember very well was that you said people. That's the essence of improving data.
Right.
So, and probably that's also because you just published a book, People and Data. So probably that was part of your marketing strategy. But I know you for a while, and I don't think it's only marketing. I think there's a core belief in that. So I really would like to go into that and uncover a bit. Why do you think people is the most important part of the solution and not tech?
Yeah, not tech. Well, it's a really important question. And by the way, thanks again for having me to Berlin. It was a wonderful event, and I enjoyed working with you and everybody in the masterclass. And so, frankly, I came away really encouraged that we're actually going to get in front of some of these data issues, and it's going to be hard. It's going to take a long time, but we're going to make the world a way better place. But with respect to data quality, and people and data quality, I guess for me this has been an unfolding over a long period of time, and it began with a sort of a vignette that happened on a boat. It was in Baltimore Harbor. It was a celebration for some successes that AT&T was having, and we'd set up the data quality lab, and Bell Labs, of course, was part of AT&T. But we were serving advisors to the company on a major series of initiatives, and this party was sort of celebrating that, and so we'd sort of provided the advice and counsel. Anyway, I got invited to this event, and I'm sort of wandering around and talking to everybody, and I didn't know a lot of people, but one of the things I asked them was, well, how did this program impact them? And I mean, it's born in my mind is as clear as yesterday. But one woman, she said, "Tom, this changed my life," and she closed the distance between ourselves, and she said, "I've worked for this company for 20 years, right? I've done the best I can, but I've never had any control over anything, right?" She said, "This was entirely different. I came in and we, learned a little bit what was going on, but then I had to use my brain, and I had to use my brain to figure out where these data problems were occurring and how we were going to solve them." And then she said, and let me tell you what we did. And then she proceeded to go, in detail about that. But her enthusiasm, right? The fact that it had changed her life, she went from sort of responding to things to being in control. In today's language, I would say she empowered herself via data quality. Okay. And unfortunately, I didn't fully pick up on that clue, and others emerged. Um, so another clue that emerged that's maybe 10 years ago or so was we looked at all our successful data quality programs and compared them to the ones where we weren't successful. And every time we were successful, there was this person who we later labeled a provocateur, who was some business person who had a business problem that they were unable to solve sort of in the usual fashion. And for whatever reason, they reached out to me. They thought maybe there was some data involved, maybe it was a quality, whatever it was. But they had a very open mind in attacking the data quality, whatever their business problem was, in a new way, right? And say, okay, yeah, people are important. And then the third thing that happened was, during COVID, um, I took another really hard look at why progress in all things data was so slow. And as I did that, the number one reason that came out was that regular people without data in their titles were not included. And so you can go through like anything you want in data. So like go through data science, and step one is understand the problem. Well, a data scientist sitting in their office can't do that, right? They have to get out and work with people and so forth. But with respect to data quality, it's absolutely clear that everybody serves in two capacities. They're both a data creator. Stuff they do is going on to somebody further downstream in the company. So maybe you work in marketing and you're producing leads that are then picked up by salespeople. Um, and so maybe you're collecting money from customers, and later that wins its way into work that's done by finance and so forth to get the book scored. So everybody's in this role as a creator, and the other role they're in is as a customer. And so as a customer, they're dependent on data that comes from somewhere else. And so you think about, well, what does it mean to be a good customer? Well, I had to clarify my requirements, talk to people about them, measure against them, so you'll get it. But anyway, so people by and large were not stepping into these roles as creators and customers. See problem, do your best to fix problem, and get through the day, right? Rather than trying to make it better. And so these roles of creators and customers are essential in data quality. So organizations do not have one data quality problem. They have a myriad of others. It's the stuff people use in marketing, sales, operations, finance. Data science is all very, very different. And so unless people are involved in identifying what they need and finding and eliminating root causes of error as creators, then the problem persists. And then the fourth thing, and it struck me, sort of like I didn't know it one day, and then the next day it was blindingly obvious. But all the data quality work is being done by regular people. So I mentioned that salesperson who depends on leads from marketing, and as I talk to salespeople, I find out they're spending half the day cleaning up the leads data, and so, oh man, so that's data management work, that's data quality work, and so those sort of four factors they're sort of all going on along on different timelines, but they came into my brain as a cascade within two or three minutes, right? Almost, that we can't go anywhere in data quality without regular people, without large numbers of them, and aspirationally at least every single one of them. And then furthermore, it's all these cases we've done where people get sort of tolerably good at being a customer and tolerably good at being a creator, well, quality improves pretty darn quickly.
I understand how you came to these conclusions. It's probably over and over and over again. You realized that probably the ingredient was the people doing the work that are needed to solve the problem of data quality. I also imagine that it's not that easy to make people conscious of that. Like people are marketing managers. Their identity is a marketing manager or salesperson or a customer care agent or any kind of capacity, the logistics manager. They wouldn't probably describe themselves as data creator or data consumer. So how do you deal with that?
So look, of course, this is the starting point. But the good news is, when you point it out to people, it's oh, by the way, you use data created by others. In that respect, you're a customer, right? Everybody goes, oh, yeah, of course I am. Right. There is no pushback when people hear this. I mean, it is out of sight and therefore out of mind, right? But once you put it in the mind, it's not challenged at all. It's also, oh, by the way, you're a creator. Other people depend on your stuff, right? Most people perk up when they hear that, right? So they kind of think they come in and they just do jobs. Oh man, I'm part of a larger organization here. Others depend on me. So it is a small conceptual leap. People also recognize their customers in other areas of their life, right? So you wouldn't go in and buy a car without thinking through what you wanted in the car. It's about why would you go to work without thinking about what you need in the data, kind of thing. There's lots of I don't know, dozens and dozens of little ways that once people sort of, oh yeah, I'm a customer, they personalize it for themselves.
Right.
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 Now that, by the way, that's one-on-one. So the question of like, all right, well, there's 10,000 people in this company. How do we get all 10,000 of them to realize their customers and creators? And so, obviously that's why this is such a really, really interesting management problem, and not a tech problem, Alex.
And I think one of the challenges that you have is to create that visibility of the impact of that work. I think it's very important to send the message, you're a creator, you are also a customer of data. And I think that can be already half of the win, making that mindset shift. But I also remember you were talking about something I recall as fat organization pipelines for data.
Yes.
So basically, my understanding of that is basically where the large value flows or the important value flows for data in the company. From somebody creating a piece of data to somebody using it for something that is really truly business critical. Is that something, that mapping making? I found personally that when I worked with what I would call data producers, you call data creators, and make them aware, hey, did you know that your data is actually feeding into these 5 algorithms, is feeding into these dashboards that are used for critical decision making by the board? A lot of times they said, I had no idea and I would have behaved differently if I knew, and simply creating that transparency is very, very powerful.
So by the way, I mean, what you just described is a job upgrade. And it's the reason people get excited about this. Is, okay, I'm signing up customers, right? But okay, yeah, you're signing up customers, but if you don't get that right, then we can't, we can't offer them a new mortgage when we have a special program on mortgages, right? We can't tie them to other products and services that we may be offering. We can't answer simple questions like how many customers do we have, right? We can't conduct analyses to understand where our biggest targets are to get new customers. And so, there's an old saying about, the fellow walks by and there's there's three bricklayers, right? And he asks the first guy, "What are you doing?" And the guy says, "Well, I'm laying bricks." And then he asks the second guy, and the second guy says, "Well, I'm building a wall." And he asks the third guy what he's doing, and he says, "I'm building a cathedral." Right? And so, I mean, by the way, I mean, the pay's the same. You still got to lay bricks. They still got to line up and stuff like that. But the job satisfaction of the third guy is way, way higher, right? And I bet he's a better bricklayer just because he understands the context and something. This doesn't look right. This isn't consistent with my view of the cathedral, kind of thing. And so what you just described, we see this over and over and over again. I had no idea my job was so important, right? And it is why these simple roles, customers and creators can be transformative, right? Now they're not always transformative. It's about people who are thinking very narrowly, and they see this broader context. Or like the woman in the boat, I'm not getting what I need. I don't just have to fix things up. I can go figure out the root cause. I can work with creators and make things better. It is a big deal, and it's why this transformation word is in the title of this book, right? It's not some great big on top driven digital transformation, blah, 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 blah. It's people transformation. And as people transform, they transform the business.
Now, what would you say is the role of the upper management, in incentivizing such behaviors and maybe simply in the way they maybe communicate to their employees? What I have seen is that it has a large effect when you publicly say how important it is that sales data is coming in a good shape and that any effort is really appreciated, and maybe even bringing some examples, doesn't have to be exactly you being pointed out, but maybe your neighboring person who has done something, but you see that in general this is appreciated and is important for the company.
Right.
Do you think that is something that we, that we as leadership, in companies missed out on?
So I want to build on where you're going, and I also want to go back to your question about fat organizational pipes, right? So bear in mind, if you work in marketing, you have a reporting chain that goes up like this, and if you work in sales, you have a reporting chain that goes up there. You work in organizational silos, and silos make it more difficult for creators and customers to find one another. Okay, and I mean, this is just sort of like the cold brutal reality. If you're strongly motivated, you can go do it, but so, I'll get to it, kind of thing. Silos make it more difficult, and so senior leaders. First of all, to your question, have they missed an opportunity? They've missed an enormous opportunity, right? If you sort of net out the little cost of everybody spending their time fixing up the junk they need to do so they can do their job. Just a little McKinsey study that people on average spend 30% of their time on non-value added work associated with data. So if all you are is counting the dollars and the euros or whatever it is, there is this enormous mass of money that you are leaving on the table, and it reflects itself on in lost productivity and added cost, right, and the inability to do clever things like AI, and so that's number one, and then number two, just in lost opportunity to switch people on. and sort of switch people on and get out of their way. So if you're management stuff, you do have to realize that the reason, the organizations that you've put in place, right? You're responsible for those organizations. And the pipes that we talk about aim to make it easier to deal with silos, right? And so you've got to take some of that seriously. But then finally, to your real point, it's like saying the right thing, showing up, working with your colleagues, to right. So maybe maybe it's an awful lot of sort of our KPIs are very very narrow and very team oriented, and an acknowledgement that not everything that's important do we capture a measurement on. Right. And so yes, I mean, I spend an awful lot of my time thinking of simple ways. So when I'm with a client, that leadership can 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 make things go a lot easier, right? And by the way, I mean, not to be crass about this, but one of the things I found about all senior leaders is they all either want to actually help or they at least want to be perceived as helping, right? I mean, it's a little cynical about that, right? But a lot of times they just don't know what to do. And yet the bottom line is, as you said, I mean, there's really, really simple things you can do, right? A problem can come to your attention and you can say, hey, I'm going to buy pizza, right? Let's get together. Let's sort of talk about this in a non-threatening way, right? You can reach out to people and say, what are you experiencing? How can I help? Right? To make some phone calls. Sometimes we've sort of ghost written speeches for people to make or hand out little quality awards or whatever it is. So. I think this is a long-winded way of answering your question. There's millions of things, leader. They missed the boat, but it's not too late. There's millions of things they can do now.
Let me say one thing here to our listeners, in this podcast. And it's very likely that you're either a data leader listening here or somebody working in any kind of data management, data engineering role where data is a problem. And so maybe you should cancel all meetings tomorrow after you've listening that and simply write down a few simple messages, find a few good stories where somebody in the company has done something to improve data, give that script to your senior leadership so they can, at the next company all hands, maybe mention something like that for 1 minute, for 5 minutes. That can do miracles according to all the evidence that you were talking about.
Right. I mean, it's also, like consistent, right? One of the things I think a lot of data leaders make the mistake of is they say my management my leaders don't get it. But getting it takes a long time. Frankly, you shouldn't care whether they get it or not. You should care whether they do stuff that helps advance the program. And you can make it way, way easier for them to do stuff that advances the program. And as they do that, let's face it, they're smart, right? They'll figure it out pretty darn quick.
So we have to make it a habit. We have to do it several times until you don't have to give that script, maybe even until, I think this is something that we have missed out on as data leaders, actually, to activate our senior leaders to help us here in that cultural transition. And, I want to go to a point that you mentioned in one of your keynotes at Data Masterclass Europe. And that was really improving data quality dramatically, you said, should be the first priority of almost all companies. And you said, but it is not sexy. Yeah. So why do you think it's not sexy? I mean, AI is so sexy. we've been talking about analytics since Tom Davenport, wrote his famous book on competing on analytics. I mean, it's up to today. Everyone wants to have insights. Everyone wants to leverage data for very advanced AI models. Quite frankly, I have heard the word data and big data and whatever kind of data word from executives over and over and over again from all organizations that I know across the planet for the last years. At the same time, you're saying it's not sexy. How is that connected?
Yeah. So first of all, it's not me who claims data quality is not sexy. A lot of people say that it's not sexy, and I think the ultimate.
And I agree with you. Data quality is not sexy, but there is a kind of a disconnect from that perceived priority of data, isn't it?
Well, so look, I want to tease it apart a little bit, and again, I'm going to take the salesperson. And the salesperson is kind of in the middle of a flow, things coming in, leads, data. They complete a sale, they send out order data, kind of thing. And to take leads data, salespeople, when you talk to them, they spend 3 or 4 hours a day cleaning up leads data, right? And I can't think of anything less sexy than cleaning up other people's junk, right? I mean, that is the reality. Now, but the right way to get to data quality is not to clean up other people's junk. It's to create the data correctly the first time so you don't have to. And I don't think that there is anything sexier available to every individual on earth than going from my job involves cleaning it up to preventing the problems from coming in. Okay? Right? And I mean, really, and people, again, like the woman on the boat, right? How empowering it is. So data quality done properly is sexy. Admittedly, data as performed today is not. I was only make one other point on it, and that is analytics. There's only a very few people in companies who really play in analytics. Single digit percents, low single digit percents, but everybody can play in data quality, right? It is there for the masses. Everybody can learn to do that stuff. So data quality has a bad reputation, and to get rid of that reputation, then then we've just got to quit addressing it the way we do, and start attacking the root causes of error. I want to make one final point, and that is I mean, look, people go into work, and they call it work for a reason. It's not entertainment. It's not play, right? What if all you cared about is analytics and AI? The number one thing holding you back is the data, and so even if you don't think it's fun to do the work, but you do think this other stuff is, you still got to do the work, and at an organizational level, people who want to have fun, they've still got to do the work, and I think that too many data leaders and too many analytics people have let management keep the opinion that, well, we'll be able to get around the data quality problems in the analyses, and it's just proving not to be the case.
And you also, Tom, claim that today's organizations are actually unfit to manage data.
Yeah.
Why is so?
Well, so if you think about the way we create value from data as things move horizontally across the organization, right? So again, marketing generates leads, leads get turned into sales, sales get turned into orders, orders get turned into money and satisfied customers, and so on, right? I mean, it takes a sequence of things, using data to advance the interest of the organization. Now, but the bottom line is we manage this way. we manage up and down, and data create value horizontally. And so, not to be overly technical, but management and creation of value are misaligned, right? And it is really, I mean, something completely orthogonal to one another in some respects. And so that's sort of like, reason number one, organizations are unfit for data. And the second is so many people view the data problem, as a tech problem. And, it's, well, the data's in the computer, therefore we get to go blame the IT guys, kind of thing. But they're very, very different kinds of assets. And if you assign data to IT, you don't get data managed properly, and you don't get the tech managed properly. And yet, I feel like I've been fighting this battle for, I don't know, 20 years. And sort of everybody who thinks about it, this isn't one where you can think about it for 30 seconds. You have to think about it for 5 minutes. And then you go, oh, yeah, we got to get data out of tech. But still too many fall into that trap. Those are the two biggest reasons that organizations are unfit for data.
Well, and I remember also a third one that was really around senior leadership, and not involving senior leadership enough.
Senior leadership's been on the sidelines, haven't they?
Yes. Yeah. And how and in my day-to-day work, I see data quality is interesting to senior leadership when they perceive it, when they have the luck to have a problem with data. They look at a report and it's simply not what they would expect, or they are disappointed after a while because they get to know that something is inconsistent or not right. Or there is a product, that is customer facing, that is an AI that is using data and it's just not performing the way we would like to, and the senior leaders then is basically told that this is due to the data quality. I think this is where those are the moments almost of truth that I saw when when senior leaders wake up and it becomes visible to them. And isn't that one of the problems, that very often we hide that away from senior leaders?
Yeah, I think there's a lot going on here. So first of all, I mean, senior leaders weren't born senior leaders, right? They came up through the organization, and so most of them experienced the problem as an individual contributor, and then as a mid-level manager, and so on. But I mean, I think you're certainly right. So it's like reports that are going to go to the board, right? There's a whole army of people who are trying to make sure that we got the obvious errors out of those, and so really acting to camouflage things. I think that there's also a tendency, if you see a problem one time and then you see it again 2 weeks later and 2 weeks after that and 2 days later, but you think of it as a series of one-offs and not as sort of a systemic kind of thing that is going on. And so personally, I mean, like, the senior leaders, I talk to, if you ask them if they have a data quality problem, the answer is always no. And then if you ask them, well, do you trust your reports you see? Yeah, then, you can usually get a 30-minute lecture on how untrustworthy the reports are, kind of thing. And so the gap is not that large, but then the gap to they might bear some responsibility for doing something about it. I don't feel that on a consistent basis we've tackled that at all.
Well, and you said that data quality should be the number one priority for almost any company. Don't you think they should have something more important in mind, like revenues of their customers? Why should data quality be on their mind?
Well, so data quality, look, I mentioned earlier that a third of people's time is wasted on data quality. Okay. And, I mean, and those who've attacked it properly and made improvements, I mean, they save 3/4 of the cost. right? So if 30% you can save 3/4 of that, right? That's 22% of your cost right there, right? If you have opportunities that, and by the way, these are simple, right? So we're not talking about doing anything complex, requiring great investment or anything like that. We're talking about things that have proven themselves time and time again in lots of organizations. So, I mean, to just wrap this up, I mean, I do think companies ought to pursue their biggest opportunities. And the data quality one, as I just described it, is an enormous opportunity. Um, no special investment required. If you've got bigger opportunities, then by all means, go after those. If some regulator is threatening to, cancel your license, then by all means, solve that kind of thing. But if some competitor is eating away at your market share, right, 10% year on year, yeah, that's a big issue. But for most companies, they just don't have too many, so we can reduce operational costs. And by the way, start making better decisions and so forth than data quality.
Tom, I would have a simple answer to that question.
Okay.
I think it's very simple. What I could observe was it's very likely that if you're a senior leadership team or the executive team at a company, you want to improve sales, you want to improve your marketing for that, you want to drive customer engagement, you want to improve customer care, you want to reduce cost, you want to improve the sustainability of your products, you want to be more compliant and ensure that you keep your license. Now, all of these things have one thing in common. It's usually they require a lot of data and the right data and in the right quality to be able to solve these problems.
It's absolutely.
When you want to do marketing, how do you do marketing without data? When you want to do sustainability, you need to understand the sustainability of your products and your supply chain. You can do that only with data. And I think that's a hidden layer. It's funny because you see all these mountains, but under that, there's a large sort of iceberg underneath, which is probably data and its quality. Because when we talk data quality, we talk simply about improving data in your organization, which is probably not as it needs to be.
I mean, I think you're making a really good point. There are no problems, right, which could not be solved easier with high quality, trusted data. And as you say, look beneath the scenes. If you're having trouble, chances are, bad. You just don't have the data you need to guide your way forward.
One thing that I found helpful is you go from these problems, you work backwards from these problems that your management team has, your senior leadership team in the company has, and then find out, okay, what are the top 5 or 10 data challenges we have underneath that need to be solved? And usually that is a gold mine.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that is well articulated.
Well, let's find something which we disagree on. So I think that tech has a role to play because it allows you to maybe create a bit more visibility across the organization, how data is related. Like doing these fat organization pipeline mappings on paper can be helpful, but I think tech can help you to show exactly how data is working horizontally. To give you a very, very concrete example, if you make it visible that there are important data sets that are produced in marketing and they are very fundamental to be used in sales. And if you make that connection in your platform, make that visible, you can directly monitor the impact and also monitor the impact of problems. If you don't have these capabilities in place, then you rely on hearsaying and I think it's harder to create that transparency and visibility.
Yeah.
So is there maybe at least a supporting role of tech here that you would see?
By the way, I think some people think I'm this Luddite, right? So I'm anti-tech and stuff, but it turns out it's not true at all, right? I think that technology is essential, right? But one of the things I learned, I think I kind of cued on this from a guy named John Roberts, but what he said is sort of start with what it is you want to achieve, right? And you can call it strategy or objectives or whatever it is. And then second thing is you ask yourself, well, what's the organization we need to achieve that, right? And that's got like, what kind of people do we need? What kind of structure do we need, right? What kind of culture do we want to build and stuff like that. So, those are the things in organization. And then the next thing is well, what are the processes, right? The business processes that, need to look like. And then the fourth thing is you need technology to increase scale and decrease unit cost, right? And the point is the greater discipline you can have in moving from left to right, as I described that, the better off you're going to be. Too many things in tech, right? So, well, we haven't clearly thought through what we want to do. We haven't thought through the organization. We haven't thought through the processes, but let's go build it. Let's go buy a cataloging tool, right? And we try to work in the opposite direction, right? And this is one of the ways I think tech has been treated unfairly, right? I mean, it is just really, really hard to go from tech this way, right? But if you've got it's clear what you want, and you've got the right people and organization in place, your processes are sort of under control, then technology is wonderful, right? It is wonderful. And so I don't know. I mean, I like to, kind of summarize this: get the management right first, right? And then think about the technology. And man, that just makes the technology way, way more powerful. To your point about, rooting out connections between where something's created and where it's actually used and things like that. And, like
that can become very complex very fast in large organizations.
Right. I mean, it's mind expanding, but you don't need to do that unless you've got these ideas of customers and creators and that we're sort of all in it together, kind of thing. And that,
Right.
we expect these people to work together. And so that's my view on that. I mean, again, I don't mean to make this personal, but Redman's against tech and stuff, but again, I mean, I love this stuff. I want it to be more effective. And as I see it, it's way more effective when it's step 4 than when it's step 1.
Yes, just bring in a tool and it will solve the problem. But there's also the question, of what is the right organization here, and you mentioned silos, and, there has been a lot of approaches around data governance, having a central data governance team. I remember you said data management is by its nature, and data organizations in its nature need to be federated. They need to be spread out.
Yeah. Well, so look, I mean, the most important roles in all of data management are the customers and creators. I mean, and you can either think of that at the team level or at the individual level or whatever it is. And so, like core data teams ought to be thinking through, how do we make those people effective in those roles? One of the things we're seeing, great, some small but mighty data teams, kind of what we recommend, and then creating these networks of embedded data managers. Like there's sort of in the business, but kind of a lover of data, and kind of the bridge between the data team and the regular people learning these roles, and there to help people day in and day out, right? So not via some email exchange or something like that. So and by the way, I mean, that's sort of point 1. I mean, point 2 is centralizing the data teams, the data governance, buying tools that check all the data and stuff like that. It's just not working. And so, the hard evidence on the ground is that, centralization just didn't do it. And I can't tell you, by the way, I mean, again, how excited I am about federate, and and because I mean, yes, it improves data quality, and yes, it makes this stuff more valuable, but it also, I mean, it frees up people, right? People have better jobs, right? We're building cathedrals when people are involved in this way. They like the work. Um, so yeah, absolutely. Drive drive out responsibility as far as you can.
And everyone who has been working in data would also say that data is a very political topic. How do you deal with data politics? What would be your recommendations, and where do you see data politics playing out? And what would be your advice, to others that have to deal with the data politics day to day?
Yeah. So look, I mean, I think that for a long time, people thought data was going to be apolitical. It's just data. Who can matter, but who can care? But I think the nature of human beings is that anything important has politics around it. Um, as I remember when my kids were little, and we'd say, well, where do you want to go out to eat? And right, the little political battles, like where we're going to go out to eat. I mean, no topic is so small as to not generate politics. I mean, an issue that I just found fascinating to watch was sort of like the naivete around, well, data is a corporate resource. We ought to all share, kind of thing. I mean, it's just not the nature of human beings that we share things that are valuable, right? We try to make money on things that are valuable. We try to, build capital for ourselves, even inside organizations. And so the first thing that I say to like data leaders is I mean, just grow up, right? This is the way the world works, and make it part of what you need to do is you need to build political capital. I mean, you need to cultivate allies, right? You need to make things easier for people such that they can support you. Right? Some of these things about the organizational challenges, right? So I mean, like we got to get some relief on that kind of thing. Well, building these organizational pipes you've talked about, so that's political, right? And so that's kind of like number one is sort of recognize that that's the way it works. And I don't know, I mean, like sometimes it's just easier for an outsider to see kind of thing that it is for an insider. So I work with organizations, you work with organizations, and sometimes you walk in and there it is, big elephant right there in the room, the politics associated with the situation. So cultivate leaders, make leaders look good, give them ways that give them those steps we talked about 20 minutes or half an hour ago to get in the lead, and solve business problems. One thing that doesn't go away is I mean, if you're actually associated with some big successes that empowered everybody and made the company lots of money and increased market share and decreased risk, well, it's you attract a lot of friends when you do that.
And my experience in that was that one of the best things you can ever do is not to talk yourself about these things and about the achievements, but let your stakeholders, let your business, the other business leaders talk about great things that they achieved with data. That helps you usually more than you bragging about, hey, this is what we've done with data. This is where you really get political capital.
I think that's right. So you watch when they interview coaches of sports teams. I mean, we just had the Women's World Cup and so forth. But the great coaches And the great general managers, they always talk about what the players did and how hard the players worked and how the players worked together and so forth. And of course, behind the scenes, they're getting the right players and they're getting the right facilities and they're doing, they're doing all these things, but they're putting the credit out, out to the regular people. And so Alex, I mean, I think that, in some point they're going to write a history of like how things happen in the data space, right? And then there's going to be, people like you and me, and we're kind of like going to be behind the scenes, right? And then there's going to be, like Bob Pauke who solved this problem, and Tom couldn't solve this problem, and boom, 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 and then some senior leader solved that problem, right? I mean, those people who were in the leadership positions and made the organizational changes and solved the social issues, those are the real heroes, kind of thing.
And do you believe that bottom up change can work?
I think all change is bottom up and all change is top down. So I think that fresh ideas come into companies from the bottom. Or from the middle, right? It's about from however they come on the outside. They come with people who have a problem they wanted to solve it. I mentioned provocateurs early on, and then, but if things are going to get, if they're going to go across the entire organization, that requires top-down leadership. And I think, by the way, I mean, in terms of the earlier conversation we've had, the bottom-up work has been done. Plenty of organizations. We know how this works. It's not like it's a script, but the broad outlines are there, and the plenty of success stories are there.
So basically, let's shift our focus when we work with senior leaders from trying to explain our data world to them to this is how you can help us.
That's how you can help.
This is why it's important, and this is why how you can help us.
Exactly right. I mean, there is nothing wrong with saying I am trying to achieve the following. I need help.
And I guess one of the things we really need help in is also creating accountabilities around data, isn't it? Because there's so much motivation, but there needs to be also accountability. It needs to be important. If it works, somebody needs to care. If it doesn't work, somebody needs to care as well. And there needs to be a responsibility for treating that well. What advice would you give? What do you think can work to create more accountability around data?
So I mean, look, I'm big on these, customer and creator roles. That's step one. So step two is well, who's responsible for helping people understand these roles, right? Step three, who's responsible for making sure that we've got the most important data in the company covered, kind of thing, right? Who's responsible for resolving problems when things go wrong. I just think it starts with the basic thing about, hey, you're touching this stuff. You have a responsibility to make it better for the next person in line. And at the top level, I mean, that's a way of thinking about things. It's a culture thing, and that can't be delegated, kind of thing. So, I mean, it's federated, right? Right down to the basic, day in and day out work, and then support and so forth, and eventually, culture. And by the way, it's not about money, right? Organizations are spending way too much money on data quality now, right? As we say, everybody's job is finding and fixing the errors so they can do their job, right? There's plenty of money. Quit doing dumb stuff, and there's real money to do smart stuff with the data.
Great. We covered really a lot of dimensions of people and data. We talked about you see how many dimensions there are actually through that conversation, when you look through that people lens. I think one of the last questions maybe that we could explore is, there's of course a lot of things going on in AI. And what do you believe are the implications for people and data and improving data from the breakthroughs we have seen, from the fast developments that we can observe in AI?
Well, so look, I mean, I guess I think that this is pretty simple. I think the fate of three things may be entwined: AI, data quality, and people. Was I don't think you're doing good AI without high quality data, and I don't think you're getting high quality data without large numbers of people involved. It's pretty darn. Those things are tied pretty darn tightly.
Well, and you will need good data for good models. There's no way you create good models without great data. And we have seen that some of these breakthroughs were fueled by simply having more data and curating it in a way that it's fit for purpose to actually feed into the models. If you look at what OpenAI has done. So I think these methods have been around for years. What they did was they pumped more high quality data into these models. And I think this is something that probably is discussed too little, the role of data and the role of people in data as well. So I'm very, very grateful for the conversation we had on this topic. Because
I mean, let me put a bookend on that, right? You and I had a conversation, I'm going to say 5 or 6 years ago. And, you were getting pretty excited about AI. And I kind of, oh, Alex, come on. And I've heard this 5 times during my career. So, whatever it was. And so what's different? And I think I said, well, like, are the algorithms better, or, something like that. And what you said is, yeah, they are, but that's not what made the difference. The difference is we got bigger computers and we got 1 million pictures of cats. Okay. All right. And okay. Oh, well, and you urge me to take a deeper look. And so I started, digging in, and it took me a little while, but I woke up one day and went, this is really, really scary. Right. We have the opportunity to shut the whole electric grid down in about 20 minutes with this stuff and today's level of data quality. And I mean, nothing I've seen, changes that impression. So first of all, I mean, thank you for, really, really putting me onto it. And because I was dismissive of it for a while. And it's AI. I mean, it could be epochal, right? Changing the course of mankind, and I think we have a better chance of good outcomes with high quality data, and a higher chance of bad outcomes with bad data, and everybody seems to agree with that. So,
Tommy, you've been also writing a lot of articles throughout the year, the past years. On data science, on data, some of them, or a lot of them, I think, as a HBR blog as well. Any highlight from the last years where you said this was really an idea that I believe is very important?
You mean any highlights from working with HBR?
No, really about your articles. You've written, I don't know, probably dozens of articles in the last years.
Right.
Pick one. Which one did you like most? Which sort of idea you really think is something that is your favorite? Can be a personal favorite.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be maybe the best article that you believe, but really something that you really like.
So I forget the name of the article, but it came within a couple of months after I sorted out this idea that we can't do anything in the data space without regular people. And maybe the article, was titled something like "Your Data Strategy Should Embrace Everyone." But basically what I did there was data science is obviously hotter than data quality. So we picked apart the data science process and said, well, at step 1, you've got to understand what the problem is. At step 2, you got to understand the data, and on and on. and just recognize that data scientists could not do any step alone, right? And then observe that, like, okay, well, it's that way for everything we wanted to do in the data space. And then the article concluded with here's the 5 things I think companies should be expecting regular people to do. Okay. And in this space, the first thing is that they should play roles as data creators and data customers. The second thing, they should play roles as small data scientists in improving work at the team level. The third thing they should do is they should be collaborating on big data science and AI initiatives. The fourth thing is they are guardians of the company's data assets. And then the fifth thing they should be doing is they should be learning to become better decision makers. All right. And so for me, that put a stake in the ground, right? This is not just about rights people have. This is about their responsibilities. And in some respects, it's the same as you have rights as a citizen in your country. I have rights in mine, but you also have responsibilities, and tying those responsibilities down. And from there, making the obvious leap that if we expect people to assume those responsibilities, we have to do things to help them and build the organization up around them. Okay. And so I think that is the most important thing that, like in 1,500 words, that I've said ever.
Perfect. I think that's a great final for a really, really amazing podcast episode. I think we covered really a lot of topics on people and data, and to all of you who are curious to read more, People and Data is really a great read. I've read it within a few days. We also have an upcoming Data Masterclass that is about federated data management, practical strategies for federated data management. And I think that will also pick up on a lot of topics that we discussed today, because we believe we need to start rethinking how we approach improving data in organizations. Thank you so much, Tom, for being on our show.
Thank you for having me, Alex, and thank you for the great conversation.
Boric Data Masterclass, where great data journeys begin.